안녕하세요. 코인크래프트입니다. 오늘은 비트코인의 21가지 진실이라는 주제로 준비한 특별한 영상을 소개해 드리려고 합니다. 지난 3월 18일부터 20일까지 뉴욕 제이콥 데이비츠 컨벤션 센터에서 세계 최대 규모의 디지털 자산 컨퍼런스 중 하나인 디지털 에셋 서밋 2025가 개최되었습니다. 이 디지털 에셋 서밋은 전통 금융과 디지털 자산이 교차하는 지점에서 블록체인과 암호화폐가 금융 시스템을 어떻게 변화시키고 있는지에 대해 글로벌 리더들이 모여 깊이 있는 논의를 나눈 자리인데요. 기관 투자자부터 대형 기업, 암호화폐 인프라 기업까지 주요 인사들이 대거 참여했습니다. 그 중에서도 단연 가장 인상 깊은 발표는 이 마이클 세일러의 비트코인의 21가지 진실이었습니다. 이 비트코인 전도사로 잘 알려져 있는 이 마이클 세일러는 이번 발표를 통해서 비트코인이 단순한 디지털 자산이 아니라 기술적, 철학적, 경제적 패러다임의 대전환임을 강조했는데요. 혹시 암호화폐가 아직 믿기지 않으신가요? 비트코인 투자가 아직 망설여지시나요? 그렇다면 이 영상이 여러분께 명확한 통찰과 방향을 드릴 것입니다. 이번 영상에서는 보기 쉽게 한글 자막도 함께 넣었고 전문적인 내용을 최대한 쉽고 편안하게 풀어냈으니 부담 없이 시청하실 수 있을 거라 말씀을 드립니다. 그리고 분명히 비트코인이 왜 우리의 미래를 책임질 자산인지 깊이 있게 느끼실 수 있을 거라 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 그럼 지금부터 함께 감상해 보시죠.
Works for hosting me, and thank you to everybody in the audience today for being here. I appreciate it. I've followed the program for the past few days. It's been extraordinary, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to present in front of you today. I have, could we go back one slide? I have prepared a new presentation. A few years ago, I created one called the 21 Rules of Bitcoin. This one's the 21 Truths of Bitcoin. And preparing for this, I asked myself, what is true today in the year 2025? And perhaps what are the truths that the mainstream world, the mainstream media, traditional investors, politicians, people that are just getting familiar with Bitcoin, with digital assets, what is it they don't know that seems very, very clear to me that I want to share? And so I've gathered my favorite 21 truths of Bitcoin today, and I'm going to start with the first. Bitcoin's an ideology. Freedom versus slavery, innovation versus stagnation, sovereignty versus dependency, property versus poverty. It's a very powerful ideology. It's spreading the entire world, and there would be no Bitcoin without the ideology. It's capitalism versus socialism. It's the individual versus the collective. It pops up throughout human history. We see these themes for the last thousands and thousands of years. You see these themes in the writings of the Austrian economists. You see these themes in the writings of Voltaire and the intellectuals of the 19th, the 18th, the 17th century. You even see these themes in the Constitution of the United States. The Founding Fathers had this ideology, and you'll see it echoing throughout Bitcoin. The second truth of Bitcoin is protocol. Satoshi created a protocol based on that ideology. The 21 million coins, the block sizes, the 10-minute centers, the SHA-256 hashing. It was an integrated protocol. It's not the only way you could have done it, you know. You could have base 10 math, but you could have base 2 math. You could have English as a protocol, but there's also French as a protocol. Bitcoin's a protocol for prosperity. It's a protocol for economic success, economic empowerment. And that protocol lives on in the software. Oftentimes people say, well, what about this quantum thing, or what about that technology thing? And the point that I make to them is that English language is a protocol. If you have to upgrade the software, you'll probably upgrade the software, keep the language. Base 10 math is a protocol. If you have to upgrade the software, rebuild the computer, you'll probably keep the base 10 math. Bitcoin is a protocol. You may change the hardware, you may change the software, you may change the nodes. The protocol is simple. A bunch of intelligent people everywhere in the world would like to keep their money forever. Once $1 trillion worth of money flows into that network, they'll be looking to figure out how to keep it, and then when it's 10 trillion or 100 trillion or 500 trillion, you'll have a bunch of people speaking a language of economics, a monetary language. That is the Bitcoin protocol. Truth number 3, Bitcoin's an asset. One of those 21 million coins pops out. A lot of people just focus on the asset. They forget the ideology. They don't really notice the protocol. They think, do I have a Bitcoin or not? What kind of asset? It's the apex asset. It's better than cheese. It's better than palladium. It's better than gold. It's better than silver or copper or land or goats or cattle or lumber or pieces of paper that we call currency. Bitcoin is the asset, right? It is the asset based upon the ideology and the protocol that results in the greatest monetary premium in the world. Truth number 4, it's not just an asset. Bitcoin's a network. Bitcoin is not just a network, it's the network. It's the most powerful computer network in the world. It's a global network. Without the network, you can't have the asset. The asset is stored in the network. The network is a manifestation of the protocol. The network creates decentralization, that's true, but it also creates fault tolerance, mission criticality, redundancy, and all of the other technical, economic, and ethical qualities of the asset and of the movement. An ideology that spawned a protocol resulting in an asset that circulates on a network. That would be a simple articulation of what Bitcoin is. It's a truth. I would hazard to guess that the great majority of people watching the price of Bitcoin don't think about all 4 of those things. And they don't think about this as much as they should. Bitcoin is immaculate. Truth number 5. It was spawned by the Immaculate Conception. A nameless, faceless programmer gave it as a gift to the world. How do you create an immaculate thing? It's a God-given thing. It's a natural thing. We've had it since the beginning of time. No one took beneficial claim to it. No one asserts control over it. No one expects to cash in on it. The Immaculate Conception is an extraordinarily important thing to the network. That, combined with truth number 6, Bitcoin is ethical. What makes something ethical? What makes it ethical is you can take title to it, you own it, no one can debase it, no one can take it from you, no one can corrupt it, no one can control it. It's a thing of natural beauty. No country will ever trust anything that another country can debase or control. No company will ever trust anything another company owns or controls. No person will ever trust anything controlled by another person. In order to reach this great plateau of ethical, it has to be beyond the corrupting influence of any human, any man-made institution, any organization of people in the world. The Immaculate Conception was a necessary condition, but the engineering brilliance of Bitcoin was another condition. Right? Bitcoin's a perfect machine made of imperfect components. That's the brilliance of the engineering. Can you make something that can a human being make something that other humans can't corrupt? Bitcoin's ethical. Truth number 7. That makes Bitcoin a commodity. What is a commodity? An asset without an issuer. Gold's a commodity. Corn is a commodity. Lumber is a commodity. Why is this important? Because in law, commodities have a special status. A company in the United States can be capitalized on commodities. It cannot be capitalized on securities. There's actually a special carve-out in corporate law for publicly traded companies. But maybe more importantly, I can stand here and I can tell you that I think the price of Bitcoin will go to 13 million over 20 years. I couldn't say that about a security, right? You have legal immunity to actually express your opinion about a commodity. That makes commodities politically superior, legally superior, ethically superior, financially superior to a non-commodity, to a security. And it's not just a little bit better, it's 100 times better, right? And so Bitcoin is a commodity. Bitcoin is actually the commodity. I studied commodities in my early professional years. Every other commodity can be created with technology, with capital, with know-how. If you were going to take your family's life savings and buy a commodity to hold for 100 years, and you thought about it, would you buy soybeans or corn or oil or natural gas or lumber, coal, silver? Well, no, they're all awful, and you know why they're awful, because it's pretty obvious to you that 100 years ago it was harder to make those things than it is today. And if the price of oil goes to $1,000 a barrel, we're going to frack it, triple frack it, hyper frack it, and we'll drive the price of oil down. Same with gold. There's been hyperinflation in gold multiple times. You know, the California 49ers found gold. We created so much gold that we crashed the economy of Europe. Every other commodity is going to actually explode in supply with technology and with price. That makes them all garbage investments for a long-term investor. They're, in fact, the worst possible investments as a long-term store of value. The king of them, gold, still underperforms the S&P index by a factor of 2 or more. So there's only one commodity in the history of the human race that wasn't a garbage investment. The one commodity is Bitcoin, right? A digital commodity. And let's talk a bit more about that. Why is it not garbage? Why is Bitcoin great? Bitcoin is a digital commodity. Every other commodity I can name is a physical commodity. Physical commodities are God-given, and anyone in the world can create them. Digital commodities were created by the brilliance of human beings in a fluke. You needed to have a brilliant engineer, Satoshi, give away this gift to the world. The world needed to embrace the gift. The protocol needed not to be defective. And after many, many years of not knowing whether it was something or nothing, it spontaneously monetized and came to life. It really is a miracle of the 21st century. Why is a digital commodity important? Well, you can vibrate a digital commodity 60 times a second on a computer. You can move a digital commodity at the speed of light. The AIs can decompose and recompose a digital commodity millions of times an hour, simultaneously moving it and distributing it all around the world at the speed of a computer. Can't do that with palladium. Can't do that with gold. There's no way Apple Computer's ever going to ship an upgrade that has multi-factor authentication on a physical commodity. It needs to be a digital commodity, and that's what makes Bitcoin special. Not only is it a digital commodity, it is the digital commodity. The most profound thing that happened is 2 weeks ago, the president signed into law via the executive order, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. David Sachs said, Bitcoin is an asset without an issuer, spawned via an immaculate conception. It is decentralized. We recognize it as a store of value. It is our digital gold. You have the most powerful person in the world and members of the cabinet that are saying that it's the policy of the United States government that Bitcoin is the one digital commodity in the world. That's going to ripple. And, you know, I can create a digital commodity, theoretically, an asset without an issue, and I can give it a protocol that inflates it 5% every year. I could create any kind of inflationary monetary protocol. For example, corn and oil are commodities. No one doubts the fact they're commodities, but they're not scarcity. They're not capped. Bitcoin wasn't just a brilliant creation of a digital commodity. Bitcoin was brilliant because Satoshi capped the supply at 21 million. If I give you an inflation rate of 2% and the supply of gold, the economic half-life of your wealth is 36 years. When I give you an inflation rate of 0% in your digital gold, the half-life of your economic wealth is infinite. It is forever. The difference between 2% inflation and 0% inflation is you're dead in 36 years with 2% inflation and you live forever with 0% inflation. Next time someone tells you that it's just a little bit of inflation and the 2% doesn't matter, I just want you to think about that, the half-life of 36 years versus the half-life of 1 billion years. And of course, with that observation, it stands to reason the next truth is Bitcoin truly is digital gold. Gold, what does it represent? Gold represents money and wealth in the human race for 10,000 years. It represents prosperity. It represents the king commodity. It represents the most ethical, virtuous, technically sound money. And the vast majority of the people in the world, they're not invested in digital assets. They're not invested in Bitcoin. They don't even know what we're doing here. You're probably, if you lined up 100 people on the street, to say that you're the top 1% is probably an understatement. You're at least ahead of 99%. So for the mainstream, when you say digital gold, what that tells them is that instead of giving away a gold medal at the Olympics, maybe it's time for a Bitcoin medal at the Olympics. What it means is that the golden age will give way to the Bitcoin age. What it means is a city with streets paved in gold maybe should be paved in Bitcoin. What it means is that if something is gold-plated, and that's how you monetize anything, a gold-plated lighter, a gold-plated pen, maybe it should be Bitcoin-plated, right? This is a very profound thing, right? The truth, Bitcoin is digital gold. We dismiss it as being kind of a boomery idea, but the boomery idea means Bitcoin's worth more than 20 trillion because that's what the gold is worth. But the truth is everything digital in our modern era is worth 10x the analog version. If Bitcoin is nothing more than digital gold, Bitcoin is worth $200 trillion, if it's nothing more than digital gold. But of course it is more than digital gold, because truth number 11, Bitcoin is digital money. JP Morgan said gold is money, everything else is credit. Money, a bearer instrument. I give it to you, I don't have it, you have the money. Well, Bitcoin is money. What is everything else circulating in the internet? Credit. What does that mean? It means that I send you something, I send you a fee over a credit card network. 45 days from now, maybe it will be transferred to your account after the credit card company takes 2%, right? In a world of digital credit, that means that it takes 4 years for the money to move 40 times, and at the end of the 4 years, all the money's gone. In a world of digital money, it means you can move the money once a second. Maybe you can move the money 60 times a second. You move the money 60 times a second for a 20th of a penny, you still have the money. The computers are not going to think one click, one settlement every 30 days. They're not going to agree to pay 200 basis points per vibration of the money, right? Digital money is profound. It's so profound that everybody in the business of managing money doesn't even understand what this means. When they understand what this means, then the industry is going to 100x. Bitcoin is going to go to the moon. Well, if Bitcoin is digital money, what else is it? Well, truth number 12. Bitcoin is perfect money. Okay? What is perfect money? If you read the writings of the Austrian economists, von Mises and Hayek, they write about money, but they couldn't conceive of perfect money. Voltaire, Aristotle, Plato, they couldn't conceive of perfect money. Why? They didn't have the technology. It's kind of like asking Aristotle, tell me about clean water. How how do you understand clean water if you don't have a microscope and you don't understand that there are pathogens in the water? Nobody understood perfect money until Satoshi gave it to us, and that's because it was impossible to create perfect money before modern semiconductors, modern internet, modern cryptography. So they were struggling, and you can see Hayek and von Mises, they struggle with this notion. In the Constitution, the founding fathers, who were pretty intelligent, said the only legal money in this country is going to be gold and silver coin. They kind of knew this idea, a commodity in your hand, a self-custodied commodity bearer instrument felt like good money. What they designated as perfect money in the Constitution, and we have drifted, a little bit away from that, they designated what they saw were the hardest commodities and the most liquid fungible commodities that could be used as a monetary token. And they were never perfect because you can't practically do every transaction by swapping gold and silver coins, and because gold and silver coins aren't hard capped, they have inflation. So they had defective money that was slowly decaying, that was not quite useful, but it was just, they used to say it's the worst possible way to do it except for every other way, right? And so the significance of this truth, this basically marks the point where economics goes from being a superstition and an art form to being a scientifically based engineering discipline. You can't engineer an economic system or a monetary system before you have perfect money. It's just like trying to do good math, but 2 + 2 = 5 on Tuesday, and it equals 4 on Wednesday. And if you don't have stable numbers, you can't do math. And if you don't have stable money, you can't do economics. If you can't drink water that's not going to kill you, life is pretty ugly, right? This is profound truth. Again, misunderstood. No economist trained in the past 100 years. They never took a course on perfect money. They never imagined it. But you can't really blame them. It's like if you went back to Voltaire and you said, okay, that's the smartest guy in the 18th century in France. And, he wrote shelves of books. But poke him and say, describe, radioactivity to me. And how are we going to build mobile phones and satellite communications? And he would have thought, what are you talking about? Right? It's like the most brilliant person without the instrument, the technology, can't conceive of the rational thing. And that takes us to truth 13. Bitcoin is legitimate. A short phrase, a powerful phrase. It wasn't legitimate 4 months ago. A year ago, if you try to remember where you were and what you were thinking in March of 2020, when the entire crypto industry was under massive onslaught, everybody's getting sued, right? And the most likely future was everything gets ground into the dirt. We have completely come 180 degrees. This is the most powerful person in the world sitting in the most sacred place, the Oval Office, flanked by 2 cabinet members telling you Bitcoin is digital gold, a store of value, a commodity. Not just a commodity. If the U.S. seized 10,000 securities, all your artwork, all your houses, your planes, your trains, your automobiles, every currency, everything of value, your diamonds, your gold brooches, your silver, they'd sell it. Right? The only thing the United States does not sell is its national parks, its nuclear stockpiles, and its Bitcoin. Now, that's a shockwave that will be heard around the world. That just happened, literally days ago. It's going to take a while for that to ripple through the entire federal government. Then it will ripple through the state governments. Then it will ripple through the banking system, the insurance system, the credit rating agencies. Then it will ripple to all the banks in Mexico and El Salvador and Argentina and then Europe. It's rippling through the banks in Hong Kong and China and Japan and Abu Dhabi and Europe. How long will it take? Well, how long does it take for a profound good idea to move its way through layers and layers of bureaucracy? It'll take a while, but the innovators will actually grab this, and those that need the money, that want the money, will reach for and embrace the money, and they will be enriched by it, and there will be others that will resist it. But that entire shockwave, right, that explosion in legitimacy, that happened just a few weeks ago, happened on a Thursday night in the White House. And that's profound. We are legitimate. And as I've said before, if Bitcoin's not going to zero, it's going to a million. Right? It's either nothing or it's something. And if it's something, then it's going up. And truth 14, Bitcoin is corporate. I talked a little about corporate law. I'm very sensitive to it because I ran a public company for many years. We came public in '98. Every public company in the world is capitalized on one of two things. You're either going to capitalize on short-dated treasuries or sovereign debt, in essence, currency, or you're going to capitalize on a commodity. Well, it turns out that every commodity other than Bitcoin underperforms the S&P index. It doesn't beat the cost of capital. So capitalizing upon silver or gold or palladium or oil makes no sense. There is one commodity that you can put 100% of a corporate balance sheet in. And that one commodity is a digital commodity, and that digital commodity is called Bitcoin. And so what does it mean? It means that for the first time in 100 years, companies can recapitalize, and they are recapitalizing. And what does that mean? That means a company starts by sweeping a little bit of excess cash, and then cash flows, and then it sells some equity, and then it issues some debt, and then another company follows, and another company follows. Right now, there's about 80 companies that are starting to buy Bitcoin, and there's probably 80 ETFs. We're going to see another one every week and another one every week, and pretty soon there'll be hundreds. And those hundreds become the gateways for hundreds of trillions of dollars of equity capital and fixed income capital to migrate into the entire digital assets economy. And you can see it right in front of your face. You see a company like Metaplanet goes from one hotel being worth a few $1 million to being worth $1 billion in 12 months. Where does it stop? It's not going to stop, right? If you're legitimate, you're corporate, right? You're going to see a transformation of mainstream organizations. The 15th truth, Bitcoin is global. Everywhere in the world I go, I meet someone, and they say, well, thanks, thanks because I bought a Bitcoin for my daughter, or I bought a Bitcoin for the family. We appreciate what you're doing. And you know what I say? I say thank you because I appreciate what you're doing. Bitcoin is global, Your Apple stock isn't. Your land isn't, right? The artwork that you hold isn't global, right? Bitcoin is a global asset. It means somebody in Nigeria buys it, and they're getting the benefit of entrepreneurs in Manhattan. And it means someone in Arkansas buys it, and they're actually in an economic relationship with somebody in Singapore, right? This is not a lowest common denominator thing. You own Arkansas real estate, no one's going to fish you out of that investment. You own Bitcoin, you bury it in your backyard in Arkansas, and you'll wake up in 30 years and find out that someone in Tokyo or London made you rich, right? This is the global asset. There isn't another asset that trades on Wall Street that is global in the way that Bitcoin is. And it's not just global, it's immortal. We're stretching in time and space. Show me an asset that stretches to every part of space that truly is global, Bitcoin. Now show me one that I can see into the next 100 years or 1,000 years. There's nothing else that you own that's going to last 100 years, right? Your warehouse will have to be redone. Your artwork will probably have to be restored, right? What company would you think is going to be around 200 years from now, right? The real beauty of Bitcoin is the elegance of the protocol is all you're doing is buying 1/21 millionth of all the money in the world forever. Okay, when is that going to obsolesce? Like when are you not going to want to own 1/21 millionth of all the money in the world forever? Right? It's not like iPhone 99. It's not like, you know, getting the next upgrade on the whatever gadget. Right? Bitcoin is immortal because the idea is so timeless and so elegant, and the network is just virally going to spread. You know, it's a life form, and if it's immortal, it means you can actually think 200 years in advance. No company expects to live more than 10, 20, 30 years. Everybody's short term. It takes me to truth number 17 is digital energy. A calorie is organic energy, a Satoshi is digital energy. If you want the AI, if you want to put life in cyberspace, if you want to bring an AI to life, you have to imbue it with digital energy. Then it comes to life. Then it thinks. Then it lives. Then it procreates. Maybe it lives forever. You can't, anything that is funded with digital credit is just a shadow. It's, you know, it's a shade. It's a ghost. If you want something to be a true life form, you have to put real energy into it. I've said many times before, Bitcoin is a conservative asset. I give it to you. I don't have it. It implements conservation of energy in cyberspace, but the more important point is it's going to bring life to cyberspace. Truth 18, if it's digital energy, then Bitcoin's a digital energy network. How do you move energy from point A to point B? How do you vibrate energy? Right? How do you do it in a rapid, at the speed of a computer rate? How do you bring the entire world into that relationship? You can't do it with a credit IOU, and certainly you're not shipping gold from New York to Tokyo in a second. Which takes us to truth number 19. If it's an energy network, Bitcoin is a digital economic system. How do you post $10 million for 5 minutes, you know, with a company across the country and fetch it back? How do, you know, vibration, how do I give it to someone, take it back in 18 seconds? How do I swap a capital asset for a currency asset? We see this in DeFi, right? I'm swapping Bitcoin for stablecoin for Bitcoin, but think more broadly, right? Think about a world of 1 billion robots talking to 1 billion AIs that are thinking at the speed of the computer, that want to actually transact millions and millions of times an hour in time and space. They're going to do it with a digital energy network. And that takes us to truth 20. If it's an energy network, I can reverse it. Bitcoin becomes a digital defense system. Bitcoin is the most powerful network. What's the unit of power? The exahash. If I actually place my cryptographic keys, my identity, my authentication behind that hash wall, behind that wall of digital energy, then I can secure a system, authenticate a system, defend a system, potentially even attack a system. You know, you can't be a superpower if you lose control of your airspace. You can't be a superpower if you lose control of outer space. You can't be a superpower if you lose control of cyberspace. You know, control of the digital power network, the mining network, the hash network is control of the ability to move energy and capital from point A to point B. Control the network, control your destiny. Lose control of the network, you lose the ability to engage in digital commerce. Maybe you lose the ability to secure your cyber systems. It's a defense system. And with that, I'll end with my final truth, truth 21. Bitcoin is an emerging solar system. Everybody says it's a network, and then they go, yeah, I read something about Metcalfe's law. And Metcalfe's law is like knowing enough to hurt yourself. It's not a Metcalfean network. It's a Newtonian network. Bitcoin is an evolving network. Think a star system forming. There is matter, there is energy. It's the brightest thing in the financial universe. It's got a magnetic field. It is slurping energy, capital, into the magnetic field. There are objects in orbit. They're falling into orbit around it. All of you are in orbit around it to a certain extent. Every company, every country, every actor. It is getting more powerful. It will continue to get more powerful. It will continue to get brighter, right? a Metcalfian idea is like a little asteroid went past on the left and a white dwarf went past on the right, and they're both equal. Well, they're not equal. The white dwarf is going to suck the atmosphere off my planet, and the little asteroid is irrelevant. It's like a cute little shooting star. It made a little spark for me, right? This is not a little Metcalfian network. This is a network where when someone brings $1 billion to the network, it matters. When they bring 10 billion, it matters more. When they bring 100 billion, it matters more. The more capital, the more energy that flows in the network, the more powerful, the greater the gravitational field. Eventually, anyone in the orbit, right, has to adjust their trajectory in order to accommodate that gravitational field. You see this thing coming to life in front of you. It's going to have Newtonian dynamics, and it is an energy system emerging. And these are the 21 truths. Thank you for your time, and please go tell someone the truth.